What if I told you that the most dangerous tennis player right now isn't someone who just won a big title, but someone who just lost and refused to stop? Because that's exactly what's happening with Alexandra Eala, and if you're sleeping on her right now, this video might change that. Most people saw her exit at the Madrid Open and thought, okay, second round, tough break, she'll take some time off, regroup, maybe hit the practice courts for a week or two. That's the normal thing to do. That's what most players would do. But Alex? She looked at the calendar, saw the Catalonia Open in La Bisbal d'Empordà, and said, I'm going. No hesitation. No recovery week. Just straight back into competition. And honestly, that decision alone tells you everything you need to know about where her head is at right now. There's something really fascinating about a 20-year-old athlete who responds to a setback not by stepping back, but by stepping forward harder and faster. At that age, the instinct for most players is to protect yourself a little. After a tough loss at a big tournament, your confidence is shaken. You're physically tired, mentally drained, and the last thing most people want is to walk straight into another competitive environment. But the players who end up making history, the ones we look back on and say, yeah, that's when it all changed for them, those are the ones who don't flinch. And right now, watching Alex navigate this clay season, I genuinely feel like we might be watching one of those moments unfold in real time. Let's actually talk about what happened in Madrid, because I think a lot of the commentary around her second round exit missed the bigger picture entirely. Madrid is not a small stage. The Madrid Open is one of the biggest clay court events on the women's tour, filled with elite players who have been competing at the top level for years. Walking into that environment at 20 years old and holding your own, showing the kind of baseline aggression she showed, staying composed in long grinding rallies, that is not a failure. That's a data point. That's information. And the most important thing about information is what you do with it. Some players take a loss like that and spend the next week overthinking it, rewatching footage, getting stuck in their heads. Alex apparently took that loss and treated it like fuel. Because within days, she's back on court, this time as the 6th seed at the Catalonia Open, which, by the way, is not a small deal. Being seeded 6th in any professional tournament means the field sees you as a real contender. You're no longer just someone filling out the bracket. You are someone other players are looking at on the draw sheet and hoping they don't have to face early. That shift in perception is significant, and it reflects a trajectory that has been building quietly but consistently over the past year. Now here's something that doesn't get talked about enough in tennis coverage, and it's the concept of match rhythm, specifically on clay. Clay is the most physically and mentally demanding surface in tennis. The points are longer, the bounces are higher, the margins are smaller, and the tactical adjustments happen constantly within a single rally. You cannot replicate that in practice. You just can't. You can drill footwork, you can work on your serve mechanics, you can spend hours on the baseline with a practice partner, but none of it fully prepares you for the pressure of live match conditions where every decision has a consequence and the opponent is actively trying to dismantle your game plan. The only way to truly sharpen that edge is to play matches. Real matches against real opponents with real stakes. And that's exactly what Alex is doing by jumping straight into the Catalonia Open. Every single match she plays on clay right now is like a deposit into an account she'll need to withdraw from when the Italian Open comes around, and more importantly, when Roland Garros arrives. She's not just playing for this week's result. She's building something. She's stacking match experience and competitive sharpness on top of what she already absorbed in Madrid, and by the time the bigger events come, she'll have more reps, more rhythm, and more confidence than players who spent that same time just training. And let's be honest about the Catalonia Open field for a second, because some people might hear smaller tournament and think easier path, but that's not quite right. You've got players like Leila Fernandez in the draw, a player who has already proven she can go deep in Grand Slams and win matches against the best in the world. You've got Wang Xinyu, who is dangerous on any surface. The competition here is real. It's not a walkover, which is actually exactly what Alex needs, because there's no growth in easy. There's no sharpening happening against opponents who don't push you. If she goes deep in this tournament, it won't be because the draw was soft. It'll be because she competed her way through it, and that's a completely different kind of confidence boost heading into the bigger stages. There's also something worth talking about when it comes to the psychological side of this decision, because I think that's where the real story lives. When you lose a match at a high-level tournament, there's always a window of time right after where you're either going to spiral a little or redirect. And the redirect has to happen fast, because the longer you sit with a loss without competing again, the more that loss starts to define how you see yourself. You start to wonder if that result was a ceiling. You start to question things that shouldn't be questioned. But when you go straight back into competition, you don't give that doubt time to settle. You're back in the arena, you're making decisions under pressure, you're winning points and feeling that competitive fire again, and suddenly the Madrid loss becomes context rather than conclusion. That's the psychology of momentum, and Alex is using it correctly. The fact that she's 20 years old and already seems to understand this, whether instinctively or through really good coaching, is genuinely exciting to watch. Because that kind of mental clarity is usually something players develop much later in their careers, after years of experience, after seasons of learning the hard way what happens when you let a loss sit too long. And what makes Alex particularly interesting to watch right now is the specific evolution in her game that we saw traces of in Madrid. The baseline aggression isn't new for her, but the control within that aggression, that feels new. It's the difference between hitting hard and hitting with purpose. She's not just swinging for winners anymore. She's constructing points, setting up angles, using depth to pull opponents wide before going for the finish. That's a more mature style of play, and on clay, that kind of tactical intelligence is the difference between first-round exits and deep tournament runs. Add to that the mental composure she showed in long rallies in Madrid, and you start to see a player who is learning how to suffer through difficult points without panicking, which on clay is basically a prerequisite for winning anything meaningful. Players don't just hit their way through clay court draws. They grind. They outlast. They find a way to stay standing when everything in their body is telling them to go for the big shot and end the point. The ones who can resist that impulse and stay patient are the ones who go deep. And Alex is showing signs that she might be developing exactly that kind of patience. So when you combine the match rhythm she's building, the tactical growth she's showing, and the psychological resilience she's demonstrating by jumping right back into competition, you start to understand why this Catalonia Open run matters so much beyond just the result. A deep run here doesn't just add ranking points. It adds layers to her game. It adds belief. It adds a reference point she can draw on when she walks onto the court in Rome against a higher-ranked opponent and feels that familiar pressure creeping in. She'll know she's done this before. She'll know she can handle it. That's what these matches are building, and it's the kind of thing you can't shortcut. Now I want to zoom out for a second, because the clay season doesn't end in Spain. This is a runway. Madrid was the start of it, the Catalonia Open is the middle of it, and Rome and Roland Garros are waiting at the end. And if Alex is building match rhythm and sharpness now, by the time she arrives at those bigger stages, she could be a genuinely uncomfortable opponent for anyone in the draw. The higher seeds are always the story, the Swiateks and Sabalenkas of the world, but the players who actually cause chaos in those tournaments are the ones who arrive with momentum, nothing to lose, and a game that's been sharpened over weeks of competitive matches. That is starting to sound a lot like the version of Alex Eala we might see in a few weeks if this clay season continues the way it's trending. And that is a genuinely exciting thought, because a dangerous floater in a Grand Slam draw can change everything. They're the players who knock out second seeds in the third round and completely reshuffle the bracket. They're the ones nobody wants to see on the other side of the net. And right now, if Alex keeps doing what she's doing, keeps competing, keeps learning, keeps choosing the fight over the rest, she has every chance of being exactly that player. Look, at the end of the day, what Alexandra Eala is doing this clay season isn't flashy. It's not the kind of thing that generates a lot of headlines when you're not winning titles yet. But it is the work. It is the unglamorous grind of showing up when it would be easier not to, of competing when rest would be justified, of treating every match as a building block rather than just a result. And the players who do that work quietly, consistently, without waiting for permission or validation, those are the ones who eventually force the tennis world to pay attention whether it wants to or not. So when people ask whether the Catalonia Open is just a bounce-back tournament for Alex, I'd say they're asking the wrong question. The better question is, what does the version of Alex Eala, who comes out the other side of this clay season, look like? Because if everything she's building right now clicks together in Rome or at Roland Garros, we might not be talking about a promising young player anymore. We might be talking about one of the most interesting stories in women's tennis. And this video, right here, this might be the one you look back on and say, yeah, that's when I started paying attention. She hasn't backed down. She hasn't blinked. And in tennis, and honestly in life, sometimes that's the whole story.